This is episode number 535 of the Health and Fitness Podcast by InnerFight, brought to you in association with Smith Street Paleo, taking care of all of your paleo goodness, recipes, meal plans, and all of the yummy treats. You definitely need to hop over to smithstreetpaleo.com and check all of that out. Welcome back to another edition of the show, folks, and this is the last episode of this four-part series. We've been talking all about indoor training in the hot months, and we're going to round it out today talking about eating and drinking in the heat, or maybe if you're training indoors. Tom, I don't know about you, mate, but big temptation if I do train outdoors in the heat in summer, feel in the hour or two after bloated and terrible, and then 2 hours later you just want to eat the world.
Yeah, you're not on your own there.
What's mate, let's talk a little bit. I want to split this one, is the last one we've got. I want to talk a little bit about people are still going to be training outdoors, so let's give them a little bit of information first about what they should be doing related to food and drink during training outdoors, and then we'll hop indoors because there definitely needs to be some adjustments.
Yeah, I think the first thing to address with this is remembering back to episode 1 where we discussed the reasons why the mechanisms behind your body slowing down when training in the heat. Another one of these reasons that you tend to find your stomach gets discomfort when exercising in the heat, like you're talking about the bloating. Some people find they get more upset stomach exercising in hot conditions, is because that blood flow that is usually put aside to go to the stomach when exercising, because we've got that need for it to go out to the peripheries and out to the skin to cool the body, it's not getting as much blood flow into the stomach.
So this is exactly what we're saying in episode 1. Basically, the blood is moving away from the vital organs, it's moving away, it's trying to cool us, and it's not getting to where we need it, and that's why we get a lot of muscular pain. We didn't actually speak about that. We spoke about that when we were talking about my race in Sri Lanka. I was actually just getting pain in my muscles that I hadn't had before, and this is exactly the same thing that's going to happen in the gut.
Exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
So what we need to be careful of is, or what we need to be aware of, that in the heat, the gut is going to change. We're going to feel a lot different, which the main thing that kicks up, mate, is definitely bloating.
For you?
Yes, massively. Like for digestion, and you just feel like, even this morning a little bit, I was running this morning outside, it's quite hot again, and for about an hour afterwards I just felt quite full.
Yeah, okay.
So I think that's one thing that people need to be when it comes to eating and drinking. But mate, the biggest mistake we see and the biggest reason why people run into trouble is obviously related to the liquid.
Yeah, dehydration is a huge factor, and also within your body slowing down and exercising in the heat as well.
Yeah. So mate, when we come to indoors, a lot of people will be like, okay, how do I fuel this? How is it different? One thing that we didn't speak about, and people might have seen here in the gym, is that we have a little fan next to our sort of techno gym area that we have downstairs, because you're not getting the resistance from any sort of wind, you're sweating a shitload.
Yes.
How does your strategy change when you come indoors?
In terms of nutrition, I think you can actually make it a little bit more structured. You can have bottles set up. You can make sure they're bottles that remain cold, which is a really nice thing to have. If you go out for a ride outside, within the first half an hour you're drinking warm liquid, which isn't fun. Yeah. So you can actually keep having nice cold bottles. You can pay a bit more close attention to timing. Yeah. With the fluid that you're taking on, you can get really geeky and do a sweat test. Yeah. And then you can work out how much fluid you're losing.
Mate, talk us through a little bit about sweat test, because I think 4 or 5 years ago it was something that was a little bit, people didn't really, people knew about it, but it wasn't commonplace. Now, I think this is the third time today someone said sweat test.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're going to want to do it in your normal indoor cycling environment or indoor running environment, so that the temperature is consistent. You'll then weigh yourself before you start exercising, preferably nude. That way you're not going to, because if you weigh yourself in your clothes, then you exercise, your clothes hold on to that sweat and will become heavier. Yep. So nude weight, and then you exercise and you go at what your most common steady state run pace would be. So we might look at marathon pace, half marathon pace, as long as it's consistent.
Right.
You then make sure, obviously, the temperature is going to be what it consistently will be when you're training. You then weigh yourself afterwards.
Right.
And then you can work out if you're, for every gram of weight lost is a, what are we talking in liters? 100 mil of liquid.
Right.
So every 1 gram is 100 mil of liquid. So if you lose a kilogram when exercising, you've lost 1 liter of water. Fluid.
Right. Why is that important?
Because then you know how to replace
Right.
it. So for every, you want to replace 1.5 times the amount lost.
Right.
So if you've lost a kilo, you want to replace with 1.5 liters of fluid.
Right. So, mate, and do you think that is something that people should be doing? It sounds quite geeky.
I think you should, yes.
Right. Just to know sort of generally. And would you do it across a different number of tests, or is one test enough, or how would you get that figure, mate?
I would recommend doing it over probably an average of 3 tests.
Right.
You can sort of work out roughly if you're a heavy sweater or not. You can then work out, like, there's a few anecdotal ways to know whether you're sweating out a lot of sodium.
Yeah.
Like, when your sweat goes in your eyes, does it sting?
Yeah.
Like, I get that.
Yeah.
And I'm a heavy sodium sweater.
Yeah.
So that is one way of knowing, okay, I'm losing a lot of sodium here. Some people will sweat, but there won't be a high sodium content in that sweat. So they can replace with just water.
Yeah.
If you're sweating out a lot of sodium, you need to replace with an electrolyte. You need to replace with certainly enough sodium, but a mix of electrolytes is ideal.
Another marker for that is obviously you'll see it on your clothes, you'll see it a lot on your hat. You'll get that sweat line. It'll be a white line once your cap's dried, for example, or definitely in cycling, you be sweating a lot, and then you could riding a little bit more into a headwind. It dries out your shirt, and you'll see all of the salt on it. And you see some people that have like loads of salt on them, and some of them that don't really have any, and that's because of exactly what we're saying here. Some are just losing a lot of sodium as they work out. So that's why the sort of the solution for everyone is quite different as to what they need to put back in.
Massively. It's very different to everyone. What works for one will not work for the other.
Mate, let's talk about a session that you do indoors, because if we say, okay, we're going indoors now, most gyms are quite cool, but that wind resistance is a lot different as well. How do you personally change up your nutrition strategy and your hydration strategy? Take whatever you want. If you're running for an hour indoors versus an hour outdoors, or a bike session, mate.
I think you both are quite similar if you're exercising outside in a warm environment and you're exercising inside in a fairly warm environment. Yeah. Obviously, we talked a little bit about how you're going to see a difference in cardiac output, so a higher heart rate.
Yeah. And
those higher heart rates usually mean you're going to be switching a fuel source or the ready available fuel source. So lower heart rates, you can get away with burning more fat as fuel, so maybe you won't need to eat as much.
Yeah.
As your heart rate rises due to temperature, you'll naturally will be burning a higher carbohydrate source for fuel.
Yeah.
So you might want to think more about having in a higher carb solution in a water bottle, or having like gels that are pure carbohydrate based.
Yeah.
And then again, you just got more accessibility to it. So I might even say indoors, have more options.
Yeah.
Because then if you don't need to have a gel, it doesn't matter. It's not like you're carrying dead weight. You're just leaving it on the side of the treadmill or whatever.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah.
Outside, it becomes a lot more difficult because you've got to predict a little bit more about how long you're going to be out. If something goes wrong, you need a bit of a backup. Everyone always has that extra fail-safe gel. And like say with the bottles and things, like now freezing bottles is a really good idea. Having ice solutions like slurries or frozen bottles to defrost over time. Whereas indoors you just don't need to worry too much about that. You can even get off halfway and go and fill up a water bottle if you want. Yeah,
that's true. And I think that's one thing, mate. I think definitely if you are training outside in the summer, having more is more ideal than having less. That's one of my go-to tricks as well, to freeze the bottles, and you play around with it a little bit. You get some insulated bottles, get them frozen. You'll know exactly how long it takes for them to defrost as well, whereas a thinner bottle obviously will defrost a lot quicker.
Yeah, and there's a lot of research on the perceptual feeling. So again, going back to show one of one of the stress we get in heat, the perceptual feeling of having something icy in your stomach is massive. People love it. Absolutely love it.
Or pouring it on the back of your neck. I remember when we were in Sri Lanka, a guy came with an icy pop, with a mango icy pop, and I ate mine, but one of the runners said he just left it and it sort of just melted on the back of his neck, and it was just absolutely unreal.
We one year I crewed for a Race Across America team in 2016, and there was a record high temperature as we were going through one of the deserts. Anyway, it was like 46 degrees. It was mental.
Wow.
And the nutritionist on the team was mixing secret training mix into an ice machine and then blending it. So it was like training mix ice slurries.
Wow.
And the riders just loved it. It was
we need to get David Hunt from Secret Training on the program. I wonder if he could get that on Uber Eats for us or something, mate.
That'd be epic.
He's pretty good when we need new stock. So a Secret Training mix slushy. But even things like that as well, mate, that I think people, like, you could probably freeze, like if we look at Secret Training, you could probably freeze something like a gel. You could freeze the real fruit.
I freeze the juice bars.
Have you frozen them?
Yeah.
Yeah? How do they go?
Good. They're nice. And you actually like bite chunks off it.
Really?
Like when it's warm, it's like a gel.
Yeah, it's like a gel. Yeah.
But they hold their structure a little bit better. It's quite nice.
I think that's something that, again, if you are going to be training outside, even if you're training a little bit indoors and you want something that's a little bit cooler, because for quenching your thirst, you still are sweating a lot inside.
Definitely.
So the solution, although it's not as, the heat is just not quite as intense, that might be a solution. And one of the things as well, if you are outside and you're cycling and you've got those gels in your jersey pocket, that sun is beating down. They are a completely different animal when they're about 30 degrees. They actually taste revolting.
Yes, and your gut environment changes when it's hot as well.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of athletes get digestion issues due to gut microbiome changing in hot conditions. When certain body temperature goes up tiny amount, then it starts to change.
Mate, let's go through, before we round this one out, let's go through sort of post-workout nutrition. If people are feeling hot, we're presuming that whether you're indoors or you're outdoors, the temperature is going to be a little bit higher. People are suffering from a little bit of bloating in the gut due to what we were talking about just before.
Yeah.
What's your go-to post-workout nutrition? Should it be a few hours after, and what should people be looking out for?
I think number one, what we've been talking about, which is getting your fluid back up.
Yeah.
So people very often confuse being hungry with being dehydrated.
Right.
So one of the great things about exercising indoors is you can hop off and go and instantly get a recovery shake in, or go and get like a nice cold bottle of fluid. Whereas if you come back riding, certainly if you're coming from like Al Qudra, you're going to go back to your car. Yeah. Then unless you've been well prepared and you've got like an ice box or an ice cooler bag ready with pre-made stuff in.
Which I do.
Which, same as well, is well worth doing.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you then got half an hour drive in your car. You'll still be sweating because of the residual heat that you'll still be carrying.
And your car's 55 degrees hot inside.
Exactly. You then get in and you're only thinking about how hungry you are, not how much fluid you need to replace.
Yeah.
So I like to go for, if it's been a hard ride, I will take an extra bottle of training mix in my cold bag, and it'll be iced. And so I have that straight away. As soon as I'm back, I'll just instantly drink half of it.
Right.
And then have the second half to sip on. And then I actually use the, again, Secret Training protein shake recovery with our good green stuff here.
Really?
Yeah.
How does that mix?
Yeah, it's just what it is, mate. It's
does it mix?
Yeah, it mixes.
Good green stuff from Nuzest actually mixes really, really well. I use it every single morning, and it's literally, I can put it in like 150 mils of water. It works really well.
Works well, yeah. So I take those because they are gut friendly. I know I get on with them well. If you were to go for something like a solid food and your gut's not in a position, it's not ready to take on and start digesting solid foods, then you're just going to basically pass it straight through or get some digestion discomfort.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think liquids are the first way to go. Yeah. A next level of that would be within the protein shake having some drops of like electrolytes.
Yep.
So the elite electrolyte drops that we use here are very good for that.
Yeah.
But if you're having an extra bottle of training mix with it, you're then getting in a good amount of electrolytes along with the carbohydrates to recover, and then the protein. And actually one little touch I like that Secret Training do is they add in a bit of turmeric to their banana whey protein, which will help with inflammatory response of the gut after coming in from the hot condition. I then think you need to have that and then just wait for half an hour or so and let your core body temp come back down to normal temperature, so back into homeostasis. And you can do that in a number of ways. I wouldn't recommend just flopping straight to the sofa and just going into full chill mode just yet. I think a cold shower will help to bring the temperature down, and also some light stretching to help just continue the blood flow movement, but without raising your temperature any higher than it needs to be.
And that, mate, can be something like being in a swimming pool, just moving around a little bit. It's going to bring your core temperature down a lot. It's going to allow you just to do some stretching, which it's not stretching as people would maybe know it, but it's just moving a little bit of blood around the body and getting blood back to the muscles. That's actually one of my go-tos as well, especially if I ride outside or even if I ride inside and it's super hot. If I can get to a pool quite soon afterwards, even if that pool is not massively cold, just moving around in it a little bit rather than sitting still on the couch.
Exactly. Another one which definitely doesn't get done here, but people can just like get home and wash their bike.
Yeah.
And then you're using water, which is helping cool you down, and you're actually doing something busy, so you're not quite thinking about food yet.
Yeah.
You're still moving, you're having to bend, you're having to move things around, and then everything's put away, you feel good, you've done your ride, things away. Okay, now I can think about getting cleaned up and then think about food.
Nobody washes their own bike here, mate,
they need
except
to,
you.
Mate.
Well, you'll stop in summer because your hose pipe will burn a hole in your bike. But I think that's the key, and I think although we're talking about indoor training, the application here on nutrition is very similar whether we're indoor, whether we're outdoor. In the heat,
you're going to need to clean your bike indoors if you're exercising on it a lot, or you'll be paying for brand new bearings.
That's true.
Every month. So wiping it down, getting some good wipes in, the car wipes I use that get grease off and sweat and everything like that. They're good to use. You're still going to need, if you're using a direct drive trainer, you're still going to need to clean the chain and things. So there's no excuse to just
so you can move around. Super important, and that wraps up this series about indoor training in the hot months, or training generally in the hot months. We've covered a load of different things in the last 4 weeks. We started out talking about why we suffer in the heat. We then moved into running indoors. Then we moved into cycling indoors. And we've just wrapped up with some quite general nutrition information for you, how to recover after your training, which is super important. If you're indoors, it's still going to be hot. You're still going to lose a lot of the nutrients. And if you're outdoors, you're going to have the same issues as well. So thanks a lot for tuning in, Tom. Thanks for your useful insights as always, mate. And if you are having issues over the summer months with your training, whether it's too hot, please get in touch. Get in touch on the InnerFight Instagram. Get in touch on InnerFight Endurance Instagram. Send us an email, winning@innerfight.com or endurance@innerfight.com. There's a million different ways to get in touch with us. Just ask us a question if you don't feel it's been answered in this series. But thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you've watched all 4 or listened to all 4 series. Until next time, take care.